Oh, hello. Let's see. It's still November 19th, 2010, and it's 11 a.m. This is part two of, I'm not sure how I'm going to number these things, but Security 101. This is part two, or should I make this Security 102? That's Skype. I wonder if I have to give credit for this tone here or whatever. Now it will kick over to my cell phone. I have it set up if I don't answer. So my cell phone here in a minute is going to ring. So this is a continuation, and I thought, I don't think I've ever done one like this before, where I did a video and then continued with another right away. But maybe this will keep me on the train of thought. I was talking about maybe, if you're trying to get a job in law enforcement or something like that, instead of hospital security. I think I can flatly say, do not work shopping mall security unless you positively have to, unless they put a gun to your head. I don't think I need to go, but well, I worked in actually in the Greater Kansas City area. I worked many years ago part-time. I was working full-time hospital security. I worked part-time for contract agencies, and I'd work for one of them 6 months or a year, save the money, and one year I took the family to Mexico with the money that I made working part-time for Pinkerton, believe it or not. So I did work for one company. They sent me to a shopping mall in Overland Park, Kansas. And for a while, it was great. I was walking around and in the mall, and women were braless and attractive. And I loved the way they had the mall set up because they didn't have all the food court things in one area. Some of them were spread out, and I could patrol the mall and get myself a Dairy Queen and come back around and get me some French fries. But then I was the only security officer on duty. They had two Overland Park police officers who worked there off duty. Well, people started breaking into cars and stealing cars out of the parking. I don't think they were stealing cars as much as breaking into cars and whatever. So the police officers sure were not. It was a hot summer, August and what have you, summer. Police officers were sure not about to go out there, so guess who was out in the parking lot after that? That's all, so it wasn't such a great job then for the rest of the summer. But then I worked, after I retired in 2000, and I went to Orlando, Florida, and then I went to Texas, and then Texas I worked FAA Control Tower Security, and then I went to Miami and lived in Miami for about 6 years, and for about a year I worked mall security. Have you seen the movies about mall security? Well, that's about the way it was. I do not recommend. Now that's only experience. I have that 1 year of experience, but from what I've seen, and there may be more than one, but there's a major corporation that specializes. They have these security corporations that specialize in certain areas. And there's one, and I work for them. They specialize in mall security. That's their thing. And they have everything set up. If you have a shopping mall, you contact them. They send a salesman. We think you need X number of security on duty each shift, and here's, you pay us so much an hour, and we supply you with the people. And well, they have the thing all drawn up, blueprint or whatever. So I was working in Miami, and of course, part of the blueprint was corporation insisted that we have some training in what to do when blizzards hit. Yes. I was there 6 years, and I think one day there was a sprinkling of snow, and everybody was just going crazy. They'd never seen snow before. But anyway, this company, they have this blueprint that they superimpose on the mall, and so it was just terrible. Terrible because you really couldn't do your job, because they have, okay, it's now time, the dispatcher, it's now time that you're to check the Coke machines and scan them with your scanner, you know, look like a big palm device. Okay, it's now time to check trash containers to see if the boxes have all been broken down, or if the trash containers are full and we need to call the trash company to come and pick them up. Okay, it's now time to check the fire extinguishers, you know. So, I mean, you couldn't do any real security, and then it was just a whole bunch of things like that. And then the people I was working with, they were nice people. A lot of them didn't hardly speak any English at all. And they actually, you'd think that they don't understand. You think that they're speaking English, and you think, hey, this person, I don't speak any Spanish, and you think bilingual. Well, then you find out that they don't understand everything that you say, and even the supervisor or whatever, a lot of times when he'd write a report, he'd say, which I didn't mind, Jim, would you check this to make sure, it's okay. But it was a terrible. Don't work mall security unless you have to. That's my advice. Back to applying for getting a job, say as a police officer or something like that. I was saying, get your foot in the door. Join a cadet program if you're young. Join a reserve if you can. But for any job, let's just make it any job, try to get any kind of preparation that you can. Going to community college, even if you just take one class. I took the first class I took was commercial and institutional security. And then, of course, I later took police, more than one course at a time, police administration, patrol techniques, constitutional, but take whatever you can. I got trained as an EMT. I got CPR certification, and then I became a CPR instructor. And the hospital that I worked at in Florida, my experiences working hospital security in the greater Kansas City area were basically positive and good. At the hospitals that I worked at, all of the hospitals I worked at, we were integrated into the hospital. We were part of the team. We were treated with respect. We actually had some authority. Basically positive. And then I should have stopped, but I ended up working in Orlando, and I was in charge of security for a contract guard agency, and I was in charge of security for their hospital contract. The hospital was a for-profit hospital. That may be part of the problem, and it was just a few months because I got the hell out of there eventually. Security was not allowed inside the hospital unless they wanted you or needed you. So when I went on duty, I didn't have a key or an ID card or anything to get in like other employees did. I had to go in and knock on the door to the plant operations department, and then they would open the door and let me in. Then I could get my keys to unlock everything and my radio. But I was not to stay in the hospital. Security was to be in a parking lot unless they needed you. Which means when you got called in, you weren't really familiar with the facility, and you weren't familiar with the people. You didn't see them unless they were going to their cars or going outside to smoke. It was and it turns out that they had a camera that was aimed at the little desk in there where you had your supplies and you could get a new battery for whatever. I mean, they wanted me outside, so I was outside all the time. But they had a camera aimed at that thing. Just that they didn't have cameras all over the place. They just had a camera aimed at that plant operations, aimed at that desk area where they could see if security was sitting in there at their desk, which I didn't really consider our desk since we weren't allowed in the hospital. Everything they did was fucked up. Everything they did was wrong. And so that was contract guard at a hospital, and it was at a for-profit hospital. But what I was talking about being prepared. So when I went to the orientation as a new employee for that, even though I wasn't an actual employee, still OSHA and the fact that this hospital had been stealing from Medicare, and the federal government cracked down on them and put penalties on them for stealing, and required that all employees had to sit through a 2 or 3 hour indoctrination about doing things legally and properly so far as Medicare billing and all this type of stuff was concerned. So of course I was in the new, which was good. I mean, I was in the new employee orientation. But I'm in the orientation, and the person there says, okay, of course everybody else there was nurses or lab techs, or respiratory therapy people or physical therapy people. I'm the only security guard there. And so they said, okay, how many of you here are not certified in CPR? And just about everybody's hand goes up. And they said, well, we'll have to get you all certified in CPR. Your requirements, you have to be certified in CPR. And then, you back there, Jim, I don't think the person, you didn't put your hand up. You'll need to be certified in CPR also. And I said, no, I'm certified in CPR. In fact, I'm a CPR CPR instructor. It's things like that didn't help me with them at all. Nothing would. Security had a really bad, and of course, in a way, it was deserved. The stories I heard, of course, the employees made sure when they came out to smoke or whatever. Oh, do you know what happened with the security company that was here before? But it's nice to be, my message just came in on the. Oh no, I think that's my cell phone saying that it's charged up. So it's get whatever you can. It didn't help me in that case at all, but I mean, get, at other places when I go to apply, when I applied or whatever, that type of stuff helped. So my advice, do not work hospital contract security unless you have to. Don't work at any hospital if you're not armed, unless you need to support your family. Don't work mall security. Especially if you get some kind of a degree, get some courses under your belt or whatever. I mean, go to work for a police department, but realize that hospital security may pay more than being a police officer in some small town. Now, in a big city, in fact, it might be, the hospital security might pay more than starting out as a police officer, but if it's a big police department, you're going to start out as a recruit, and you're going to be a patrolman or something, and then you're going to be a corporal, maybe, and then the money will add up, and then not only that, you have a lot of possibilities open up to you for a police department that you can get into. I couldn't have worked hospital security if I changed shifts, I changed locations. Even when I worked 18 years for one hospital, when they had other locations, I went to the other locations. I would have went crazy just. But if you get hired by a police department, hey, you can be a motorcycle patrolman, you can be a detective, you can be they have all these different areas to go, so you can find areas, something to get into to keep the monotony and the boredom and repetitiveness from just driving you fucking crazy. It's been about 10 years, and when I was working for hospital security, the pay wasn't bad. But then the hospital group that I worked for that took over all the other hospitals said, oh, we have to hold pay down, we can't give raises, we have to give more money to nurses because, and higher shift differentials because we have this shortage of nurses, we've got to get them in, and so our pay really wasn't progressing and keeping up. We were kind of slipping back. But the pay, wasn't that bad. And if you're working in-house for the hospital, then you have, a hospital retirement plan, which I recommend this year. Well, you'll be paying in that automatic. But if you have tax sheltered annuities and things like that, put money into it. Hospital security, it's just going to depend an awful lot on the facility and the staff. Something you have to keep in mind is it's really difficult to do that kind of work because you're in a stressful environment. You have a job to perform, and a lot of the people, God bless them, I mean, I have the greatest admiration for doctors and nurses, especially ER nurses, but all nurses and staff. But there's a resistance in their part to, they're professionals. They've got, they're registered nurses, 2 or 4 year degrees, a lot of times 4 year degrees. They're certified in this, everybody thinks, and you're the guard, you're the, and it doesn't do any good, and it's counterproductive, and do not do it. And I saw directors of security do it. I was working St. Joe Hospital I was in the office and the phone rang. The director of security picked up the phone, and somebody on the other line said, we need a guard to come and unlock a door for us. We don't have any guards here. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I got the security department. This is a security department. Well, we need a guard to unlock. We don't have any guards here. We'll send a security officer. And I saw at another hospital, I saw a director of security pulling that same type of crap. And it's just 18 years that I worked at for this research medical center, which became Health Midwest, which said they had to hold wages down and do the following, do a bunch of stuff, that was anti-employee, really, because we have to keep the for-profit hospitals from coming in and getting a foothold and taking over. And of course, I told all the other security officers, I said, they're going to sell out to the for-profit. Oh no, they said they wouldn't. I said they're going to sell out to the, yeah. And of course, what did they do? They sold out to a for-profit, hospital. But you're working with these people who are professionals and under a lot of stress. And one hospital that I worked at, a small hospital that I worked at, and I was the only security officer on duty. And for a lot of time, part of the time I was the only security officer the little hospital had, and part of the time there was 2 of us, one working one shift and me working another shift, and part of the time there was me working full time and the other guy working, security officer working 2 days a week. That actually was 3 days a week. I worked 2 12s and 2 8s. But what would happen is to relieve me, they would send out a security officer from the main hospital, and the security officer would come out and be telling everybody about, oh, this is nothing out here. Down at the main hospital, we do this and do that, and telling people about, how he takes names and kicks ass and that kind of stuff. That didn't go over. It doesn't go over. Don't be telling people. I worked at a hospital Trinity Lutheran Hospital, where the director of security decided the entire security department should meet with the entire nursing supervisor staff, all the head nurses and all the charge nurses in charge of a unit, in order to communicate back and forth, and so they'd know who we were and we'd know who they were, although we already did, and so we could answer any questions that they had and whatever. And so he starts the meeting. The director of security issued blackjacks. Of course, he didn't call them blackjacks to all the security officers. They had our number stamped on it. I refused to take one. I said, I'm not carrying a blackjack. Oh no, it's a sap. I said, I'm not carrying one. I said, it's associated with, you know, it's just, it's bad. I'm not carrying one. He says, well, you have to. I said, no, I don't. And I didn't carry it. Just like when one of our officers supposedly dropped his gun and it accidentally discharged, the director of security said, oh, from now on we have to keep the chamber, that's when we carried revolvers, the chamber underneath the hammer has to be, the chamber has to be empty. I said, he didn't drop his gun, he was playing with, you know. Of course, later on the guy admitted to me, you know, the security officer, yeah, Jim, I was showing the gun to a respiratory therapy guy, and I didn't drop it, you know. But I refused to, you know, the director of security says everybody has to, and I said, no, I'm carrying 6 rounds, that's it. And of course I got away with it, but that's, you have to realize that, you know, there's a good chance, I mean, if you do your job, you may do your job and you may be 100% correct, and you may be fired out the door. Oh, let me tell you about the director of security and then end this video. The director of security has this meeting with all the security officers and all the nursing supervisors, and he starts the meeting, honest to God, he pulls out the blackjack and he says, see this? This is what we use. If you have trouble with somebody, you just call us and we'll use this on them. And one of the nursing service directors, is that a blackjack? No, we call it a sap. It's a sap. And I just watched all these nurses just, you know, it was just, I sunk back, we're meeting in a nice, and they're kind of, I sunk back into the cushions as far, you know, please, I don't want to be associated with this director of security or with anybody. Please, let me be invisible. So, don't come across macho kick-ass. I mean, if you have to kick ass, which I've had to do, which if you work security, you have to kick ass. I've been bit, punched, spit on. Been in, I can't count how many numbers of fights. And I mean, they went to jail. All of them went to jail. I may have ended up with bruises on me, but I had a job to do. It was a job and got done. But don't go telling people how macho you are, and don't go telling people how you kick ass and take names. I'm doing that here, but I never did it where I worked, ever. I guess I need to end this for now.